Oh, here we are in the Renaissance in Quattrocento, Italy, which is the 1400s, 15th century. And here's our learning objectives for this chapter. If you wanted to choose one of those to develop for one of your papers, your final paper. That's all we have left at this point. That would be good. Take a screen cap. And then here's our timeline. Of course, there's tons and tons and tons of things going on in the Renaissance in Italy. That was just basically the hub for the Renaissance. And here's our map. Notice we're in Florence, and that's it. And what's cool is with this map, you can see all of those major artworks that we're going to talk about in this chapter. Super famous, Botticelli's Birth of Venus. They say that his figures look like dancers. And I get that. And I get his style. His style is kind of like mannerist. And we'll talk about that a lot more. Okay, so this is Brunelleschi. Brunelleschi, also a very, very famous artist. But he did not win this competition. It's so cool that they still have the panels of the competitors. This was one. And here's Ghiberti. He was the big winner with his Sacrifice of Isaac. And it's funny that these panels, Quattrocento, and it has four, I don't know what to call them, curves. But it works. Alright, so the factor that allowed Ghiberti's entry to win the competition for the design of the baptistry doors for the Florence Cathedral, which is what this was for, is its spatial illusion. You know, it's such high relief, so it's really projecting forward. Ghiberti was the winner of the famous competition, if I didn't mention that, to design the bronze doors of the Florence baptistry. The naked figure of Isaac, over here we can tell, a classical reference is visible on Ghiberti's Sacrifice of Isaac panel. Okay, now we've got an artwork by Nanni di Banco. This one's called the Four Crowned Saints. In Four Crowned Saints, Nanni di Banco achieved a unified spatial composition by arranging the figures in a semicircle. Great idea. The sculptor that made this statue group for San Michele is Nanni di Banco. Just in case you missed that. Okay, here's Donatello with St. Mark. Oh, big things happening here. Okay, so Donatello first introduced the contrapposto pose to Quattrocento sculpture in his representation of St. Mark. The subject of this statue made for the San Michele by Donatello is St. Mark. We've seen contrapposto all the way back to the Greek Critios boy from 480 BC. So the coolest thing about the Renaissance is that they're going back to reference art history. And here it's only, what, the 1400s, and yet they're so aware of the past. Okay, here's St. George, also by Donatello, very important artist, in case you follow your Ninja Turtles. Yes, Donatello was one of the famous Renaissance artists. Okay, with this artwork, St. George and the Dragon, Donatello revolutionized relief sculpture in this image of St. George and the Dragon by creating an atmospheric effect with incised lines. So if you look carefully at the background, you can see that everything in the background is kind of faded out, but we still see some detail, and he did that by creating these incisions, these incised lines. So in the distance, things appear to be kind of like fading out. They're smaller, they have less detail. That's atmospheric perspective. Okay, the Feast of Herod by Donatello. So gilded bronze, very big important thing going on in the Quattrocento, Italy. We'll see a lot. Here's Ghiberti's Isaac and His Sons. Okay, so this one's really, really famous. In Ghiberti's Isaac and His Sons, the artist's study of ancient art is especially apparent in the figure of Rebecca. I should have looked that up, but I think this is her. I don't know for sure. Lorenzo Ghiberti actively collected classical sculpture. So he's going back to Grecian and Roman times and collecting those sculptures to inform his work. The author of the commentaries, Ghiberti is considered the first Renaissance art historian. That's pretty cool. I love this, how they're showing the perspective, how it's leading us into the background, leading us into space. Okay, here are the famous Lorenzo Ghiberti doors. The artist who designed and created the doors of the baptistry of San Giovanni is Ghiberti. And if you just look at these up close, oh my gosh, so many things happening, so many different scenes. It's no wonder he won. This is a replica, by the way. I hate seeing that. It's like, oh, I want to know that this lasted forever. I'm sure it wouldn't have been gold anymore, though, the gilded. Oh, it's like the first crazy artwork that really blew me away. I was so shocked. Okay, so Donatello created the statue of David for the Palazzo Medici. Okay, so the Medicis. The Medicis, however you want to say that. The Medici family is often synonymous with the Renaissance. They were the greatest patrons of the arts in Florence during this time. They had all the money. Okay, so the weird thing that I learned about this statue in particular is that, okay, first of all, it's a boy, and it's a boy that we're supposed to admire, and he is, has a lot of feminine details, let's say. So, if you know anything about the Renaissance, lots of times men, wealthy men, would have a teenage boy as their lover who took care of them on the side. It wasn't, you know, highly, let's say, people didn't really talk about it, but they knew it was happening. And so it's like, not really like a pedophile, but it was called pederasty. And this whole thing started in ancient Greece. It was socially acknowledged, a romantic relationship between an adult male, the father, you know, of the rich family, and he would have a younger male, usually in his teens. It was a characteristic of the archaic and classical periods, and here in the Renaissance we see it again. So, gorgeous sculpture, knowing what's behind it, a little bit disturbing, but, you know, it was kind of like the regular thing then. Okay, and here's Mary Magdalene. Wow. The detail, and this is wood, gilded wood. Wow. Here's Verrocchio's David. His David looks a lot different than Donatello's David, I mean, to me. He's not effeminate. So beautiful sculpture. So Verrocchio's David, very different. And we're going to see more Davids to come. So it's like the whole David and Goliath story from the Bible. Okay, so this is Pallaluolo. Don't know if I'm saying that right. The artist who departed from the convention of frontality by placing figures on a triangular base is Antonio de Pallaluolo. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that's pretty interesting. Okay, Hercules and Antaeus. So here is Rossellino's. This is a tomb. And this is a wall tomb outside, or inside, Santa Croce. So, again, Rossellino is a sculpture. Okay, that went a little too fast there, but Donatello, again, reviving the equestrian statue that we've seen many times over the years. This is Gatta Malata. Beautiful. Okay, so this one is, Verrocchio's. And Verrocchio, remember the second David that we looked at. But this is Bartolomeo Colleoni. And he is the subject of this statue by Verrocchio. So it's important to note his name. Okay, here we've got the Adoration of the Magi by Gentile da Fabriano. The naturalistic details that are evident among international Gothic style conventions in Gentile da Fabriano's Adoration of the Magi are the animals shown from a variety of angles and convincing foreshortening. So, okay, because this horse is not shown from the side, we have to have foreshortening, so it appears to go back in space. It's just like the angling of the body. And we're going to see some really dramatic examples of that coming up. The 15th century Italian artist who showed the influence of the international style is Gentile da Fabriano. This artist right here. Okay, big artwork here. Masaccio and the tribute money. So what's fascinating to me sometimes is not even just the subject matter, but it's the size. So this is almost 20 feet long. Oops. Oh, sorry you had to see that in advance. That one always freaks me out. Okay, so Masaccio created a sense of bulk in his figures in tribute money through modeling with a specific light source outside of the picture. So if we were figuring out where the light source was, the light side of the figures is all coming from this area, and then the shadowy side of each figure is on the left. So by having that light source and that, sense of modeling and dimension, then, gave them a sense of bulk. I get it. Okay, here's that frightening picture. It always freaks me out. Eve, oh my gosh, her expression, yikes. So this is Masaccio's expulsion of Adam and Eve from Eden. This is a mural in the Brancacci Chapel in Florence. It's so big. It's kind of too big, I think. But I'm not making the decisions. Okay, so this is Masaccio's Holy Trinity. Ooh, this is another really big one. Okay, in Masaccio's Holy Trinity, the coffered barrel vault, check it out, is reminiscent of the Roman triumphal arch. The principal Renaissance interest that is embodied in Masaccio's Holy Trinity alongside realism, based on observation, is the application of the new science of perspective. So they're figuring things out. In Masaccio's Holy Trinity, the vanishing point is at the foot of the cross. Okay, so all of our leading lines here are going toward the foot of the cross. So that's using perspective, and that was like a new invention during the Renaissance, a new understanding, let's say. Okay, Fra Angelico, that means he was a friar. Oh, I guess I don't have notes for this one. But, yeah, all of these moments during the time that Mary received the word that Jesus was coming. Big topics of artwork. Okay, here we've got let's see if I can pronounce it. Castagno. I don't know if the G's pronounced, but not sure. The figure that sits isolated from the rest of Castagno's Last Supper is Judas. So this is the conventional way that we see, all of the apostles together, and Judas is, the outcast. He's on the other side. Paolo Uccello, Battle of San Romano. It combines an interest in linear perspective with the International Gothic style, just so you know that. So we do have the leading lines toward a vanishing point, but we also have that International Gothic style here. Okay, Fra Filippo Lippi. Remember that Fra means he is a friar. Piero della Francesca, the Resurrection. So again, all of these moments in Christ's life are a big deal in art. Okay, this is the finding and proving of the true cross. Wow, so notice we've got registers where we have a ground line and things are, you know, the story is told through registers. Again, just like in our ancient history. Okay, this is Domenico Ghirlandio's Birth of the Virgin. Ghirlandio is the artist who painted a cycle of frescoes. Notice this one is over 24 feet long, almost 15 feet high, so it's huge, including the scene in this image. This was for the choir of Santa Maria Novella. So Santa Maria Novella was in Florence. Okay, again, Domenico Ghirlandaio portrait. And this is a Botticelli. Okay, so Botticelli, remember, he's the one who painted the Birth of Venus at the beginning of this slideshow that we know very well. And again, his figures often look like dancers. Okay, so this one's called Primavera, which means spring. And he is a Florentine artist. So important notes. Here's Botticelli painting a young man holding a medal of course, one of the Medicis. Tempera and gilded gesso on wood. I know which part is the gilded. Okay, so this is another Palaiolo. This one is an engraving. Those are so impressive to me. So it had to be incised into metal. Can you imagine drawing all of that and shading it and, you know, wow. Okay, so this is Brunelleschi. He's very famous for this dome. But, you know, we've seen domes before, and I think it's cool that they show what the structure of it looks like in a cutaway view. So, again, Brunelleschi. Okay, Brunelleschi, super famous architect of the Renaissance era. Brunelleschi is the architect of the Loggia, of the Ospedale degli Innocenti in Florence. So, this place. The term art historians use of the windows used by Brunelleschi, these little guys here, in buildings such as San Lorenzo, is oculus. So each of these is like a little eye. Oculus means eye. Okay, this is the interior of Santo Spirito by Brunelleschi. And the development of linear perspective is generally credited to this artist, Brunelleschi, which is pretty cool. And I can totally see how people would figure out, you know, like one-point perspective, how the lines are leading our eye toward the distance, and things get smaller as they disappear in the distance. So that's perspective. Okay, this is the early plan, and notice this is where the dome goes. Okay, this is the Pazzi Chapel by Brunelleschi, the Renaissance building that was one of the first conceived as a central plan structure is the Pazzi Chapel. Okay, here's his plan. And here's the interior of the Pazzi Chapel by Brunelleschi. This is the interior of the Pazzi Chapel by Brunelleschi, the artist that created the polychrome terracotta roundels. These little scenes right here in Brunelleschi's Pazzi Chapel is Luca della Robbia. So here we can see one of those close up. Incredible. So he, just like Brunelleschi, you know, kind of pieced out some of the details of the Pazzi Chapel and hired different artists to do different things. This is almost 6 feet tall. Goodness gravy. Okay, this is Michelozzo de Bartolomeo. Michelozzo is the architect of the Palazzo Medici Riccardi in Florence. So if you can see this, these people next to this huge palazzo, the Medicis, oh my gosh, So much money, ridiculous money. And this is the interior court. Okay, so this is the inside of their house. Huh. Seems very fancy. And this is Alberti and Bernardo Rossellino. Another palazzo, but this is not the Medicis, the Rucellai. Okay, here is Alberti's west facade of Santa Maria Novella. The architect Alberti, this guy, wrote influential treatises, which is the plural of a treatise, on painting and architecture. A treatise is like an argument where a conclusion is reached in education. So he had some really good arguments about architecture, and that was really popular. Okay, there's another palazzo, Ca d'Oro. So cool. All of these archways, they're just, I don't know, beautiful. And this is Pietro Lombardo's tomb at Doge. Okay, famous artwork. Giovanni Bellini's St. Francis in the Desert. The medium that Giovanni Bellini used to paint St. Francis in the Desert is oil and tempera on wood. Okay, this is Pope Sixtus IV. Little scene going on there. Okay, Perugino. He is super famous. Okay, notice his use of perspective. Wow. The element of Perugino's Christ delivering the keys, which is this artwork, of the kingdom to St. Peter, is that the artist included to remind the viewer of the ties between St. Peter and Constantine is the triumphal arches in the background. Huh, if we didn't know about these triumphal arches, you know, we wouldn't have known this was it's all clues, you know, symbolism. Perugino is the artist who painted Christ delivering the keys of the kingdom to St. Peter, just in case you missed that. Okay, this is Signorelli. Signorelli is the artist who showed the most interest in depicting the human body in violent action. As we can see here, the damned are cast into hell. Everybody's twisting and turning. Goodness gracious. Okay, this is Piero della Francesca. Another one of those scenes that you're going to see again and again and again if you're following art history, this type of style. Okay, it's almost like it's a diptych, right? And Enthroned Madonna. We're going to see more coming up. Okay, this is Alberti's son, Andrea. Quite an accomplishment. Mantua is the city that's home to San Andrea, and its facade designed by Alberti. Okay, so notice that is in Mantua, not Florence. Here's his plan. And here's the interior. Again, we got that coffered vaulted ceiling. This place is just amazingly gorgeous. Again, we've got the oculus. And this is Mantegna, one of my favorite artists. Camera Picta. Isn't that funny that that's painted chamber? So I skipped over that too fast. Camera, that word means chamber. So it's like a dark box. It's dark inside, and that's how we can take a picture. Pretty cool. Okay, this is ceiling of the Camera Picta, the painted chamber. Super famous. You've seen these cherubs before. The art historical term used to describe the perspective effect achieved by Mantegna in the ceiling painting is de sotto in su, which means from below to above. I love Italian. Okay, here is Mantegna again. This time it says it's before a bombing during World War. And it's a mural in Padua. Here it is where they're working on restoring it. So that's so interesting. How different. Huh. Okay, so we're getting back those details. And here we've got one of the most famous Mantegna paintings ever. People call it Foreshortened Christ. That's not its actual name. It's the Lamentation over the Dead Christ. But look at that. I mean, we talked about foreshortening a little bit earlier, but with the animals. But here he is, and we're seeing him going back into the distance. His feet are straight toward us. It's so crazy that he accomplished this feat of foreshortening. It's incredible. Okay, so here we've got some additional notes, things that you might want to explore further if you're interested in any of these things for your final paper. And then again, same goes here. So take a screen cap if you're interested. Okay, that's it.